From the Basilica of St. Peter, we walk the scenic path along the Tiber to the Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls. The site is universally considered a treasure house of religious art and an essential station in the pilgrimage to Rome. At the beginning of the 4th century, with the end of the persecutions and the promulgation of the Edict of Milan in favor of Christianity, Emperor Constantine ordered the excavation of the Cella Memoriae, the place where Christians venerated the memory of Saint Paul the Apostle, beheaded under Nero around 65 to 67 AD. Above his grave, located along the Ostiense Way, about 2 kilometers outside the Aurelian walls surrounding Rome, Constantine built a basilica which was consecrated by Pope Sylvester in 324. It was then reconstructed and modified over the following centuries. In the 13th century, the basilica was at its most magnificent. What we see today is the reconstruction of the basilica after it was almost destroyed by fire in 1823. In 1840, the altar of the Confessio, with its restored canopy, was solemnly consecrated by Pope Gregory XVI. On entering from the west through the wrought iron gate, we see a majestic statue of Saint Paul. The upper part of the facade is decorated with mosaic. The lower section shows prophets Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Daniel. The middle section shows the Lamb of God with 4 rivers, symbolizing the Gospels flowing from it, and 12 lamps, the apostles drinking from them. Higher up on the pediment, Christ is depicted with his hands raised in blessing between Peter and Paul. The interior of the basilica is in the form of a Latin cross and gives an impression of vast space. On the walls, we observe the portraits of each of the popes, while a ray of light lights up the portrait of the current pope, Pope Francis. We also see frescoes depicting the life of Saint Paul based on the Acts of the Apostles. Now what we see is the tomb of Saint Paul, or the Confessio. Next to the tomb, a glass floor reveals the apse of the first church. We can also see what is supposedly a fragment of the chains that held the apostle in his martyrdom. The canopy of 1282, placed over the papal altar and the Confessio, is supported by 4 columns. In the right-hand transept is the famous candlestick of the 12th century, important for its liturgical function of holding the Paschal candle and as a symbol of Christ as the tree of life and light of the world. 4 chapels are located on the transept. More specifically, that of Saint Stephen, a young martyr in whose stoning Paul had taken part before his conversion. The chapel of Saint Lawrence, the chapel of Saint Benedict, and the chapel of Blessed Sacrament, containing the 14th century miraculous wooden cross that survived the fire. Saint Bridget of Sweden, a mother and a mystic, prayed before this miraculous cross, and in her visions, she received the mission to bring the Pope back from Avignon to Rome. Here at the Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls, we stand in front of a man who gave himself totally to spread the good news of Jesus. He shows us that meeting with God is a discovery that leads to change of life. May our pilgrimage help us to let ourselves be evangelized and thus making us evangelizers.